what's up guys? Today we're going to talk about using a progression system when working on our infield play and getting a ground ball work in. Now this isn't just for ground balls. You can use this for outfielders with their fly balls. You can use it for catchers. You can use it for pitchers. It can work for any position. But today I want to just make a video focusing on infield play and how we use it with our ground ball work. So with this progression system, basically what we're doing is we're going to walk before we jog, and then we're going to jog before we run. We're not just going to go out there and go right to running, go right to game speed ground balls. And that's something I see a lot of teams do, especially younger kids. And I don't think it's the most effective way to get guys to learn, especially when they're young and they need to be taught the basics and the fundamentals. So it's basically the same thing that you would do with hitting. So typically as a hitter, if you're working on your hitting or on your hitting mechanics, you wouldn't just jump in to a BP session to work on your mechanics, because anytime whatever you're doing gets more difficult, well, you can't really think about mechanics. You have to just focus on hitting the ball. So it wouldn't be beneficial to jump in and face a live pitcher or a BP pitcher to work on your mechanics. What would you do? You'd work off a tee, or you'd work off someone flipping a ball to you, or a little bit of front toss, something like that. Well, it's the same exact thing when you're trying to get better defensively with ground balls or fly balls or whatever it might be. You don't just jump into game speed ground balls to get your work in. So basically what I want to go over today is why it's important to use this progression system and how do we do it. So the first thing you want to do for younger guys is you want to start off by rolling a ball to them. After you roll it, however many you want to do, then you can start to hit balls, maybe say 30, 40 feet away. Then you can progress to hitting it to the position. So now we're talking about, maybe 90, 100 feet, or in Little League we're talking, 60 feet, 70 feet, something like that. And then from there, we're going to hit from a flip, so you can get a player or an assistant coach or something to flip a ball to a hitter, and now we're working on game speed. But that's the last thing we get to. We progress up from rolling to hitting medium pace ground balls 30, 40 feet, to hitting to their positions, to finally hitting with a flip. And we're going to work our way up every time. Now, you don't have to use this exact progression, but I just want you to understand that it can start with a roll, something slow, something easy, and then we build our way up from there. So I know a lot of people are going to say, well, rolling, that's so simple. Well, believe it or not, professional players field rolling ground balls. Guys in the major leagues work on drills a lot where somebody is simply rolling them a ground ball. So anytime a younger kid or a coach of a younger level says, well, that's just so easy. Well, if major league players are going to do it, then obviously it works, and it's something that can be done at a lower level, and it's not too easy. It's like hitting off a tee. Every major league player hits off a tee, yet a lot of time younger kids don't want to do it because they think, well, tee is for tee-ball, and I'm too old for that. So I think the first thing is to get younger guys to understand that this is the way it's done in the major leagues. So the reason I like to start with rolling ground balls is because you're able to get a lot out of it. You're able to break the game down to its smaller pieces, and you're able to slow the game down. So the first thing when you're rolling ground balls is to work on all the plays. Roll all types of ground balls. And that's why it's important to roll, because when you're hitting, it's a little tougher to hit every single ball you could get. But when you're rolling and you're in a controlled environment, it's easy. So roll some balls straight at the player. Roll them hard, roll them soft, get them moving. Work on backhand plays. Work on inside the backhand plays where you're going to get around the ball and you're going to rake through it. Work on extended backhand plays. Balls far in the hole. Work on forehand plays, on extended forehand plays. Work on forehand plays where you're going to get around the ball and get your momentum going to first base. Work on slow rollers. You can work on every single play. And we do this stuff a lot where at the very beginning of practice, we're going to line up 2-3 guys in a group, and we're going to go through all the plays you could possibly get. And it's a coach rolling a ball to you 10 feet away. It seems pretty simple, but it gets your footwork down. It gets you comfortable making all the plays that you possibly could make. And the important part about practice is doing the stuff that you could be asked to do in a game. Because if you're getting a game and you haven't done it, or you haven't done it in a long time, you're not going to be able to just go through it instinctually. You're going to have to think, and that's when we get all screwed up. So it's important to get all the plays down just from rolling the ball. The second thing that I like about rolling is you can work on stuff. You can work on using the proper footwork or fielding mechanics, glove positioning, the tempo you're doing it at. You're able to do all this stuff because it's a little easier to field the ball when it's rolled to you. So we don't have to bear down so hard on actually fielding the ball. Now we can think, okay, how do we want our feet to work here? If we got a problem with our glove, if we don't get in good position, or if we are a glove flipper, or something like that, well, you can work on. Just think about where your glove is and know where it is at all times, and work on that. There's a lot of things you can get done when you break the game down and make it easier on the player so that he can work on some of these things. Because if you expect him to work on stuff when you're rocketing ground balls at him, especially a young kid, a 12-year-old kid, there's no way he's going to be able to work on stuff when you're whacking balls at him as hard as you can. The next thing I like about rolling is it's easy to stop and coach the player. So you're right there. You're 10 feet away. You roll and you don't like something. You can stop it and correct it quick. You're not 90 feet away where you got to stop it and run 90 feet out there, run back. It takes all day. It's a lot easier to coach. And the thing I like most about it is repetition. A lot of times I see younger kids practicing. They're in a line of 10, 12 players. They're getting balls hit to them. They might get 3 ground balls. Well, even if you don't have a lot of coaches and you have to have a long group of guys, rolling balls, you're going to be able to get through it quick. Instead of 3 or 4 balls, well, maybe you can get 15 or 20 now because guys are moving quick, you're rolling, everything's flying. Now, what we like to do after you get through your rolling progression, whatever you want to make it, you move back about 30 to 40 feet, coach gets a bat, and sometimes you go through the same exact drills, only it's another controlled atmosphere where the coach is going to hit balls, but he's not going to hit them hard. He's going to put a little bit of a medium pace on it. Same exact thing. It's a progression up from the rolling balls. But it's the same thing. You want to work on all the balls you could possibly get. It just adds a little bit more difficulty and makes it a little bit more game-like, but you're still able to focus on what you need to work on mechanically, and that's the important thing. From there, we move back. Now the coach will go back to home plate. Everyone go to their position. And now it starts to get more game-like. So now we've worked on the mechanical stuff, and now we're going to start to incorporate that in. But now we're working a little bit more on getting ready for the game, fielding the actual ground balls, and building up to that game-like atmosphere. But we're still able to incorporate some of the stuff we're working on into our mechanics. And then the last thing, the last step of the progression is to get that coach to flip and for the other coach to hit to you. And this is important, and I think this is another part that guys don't do a lot of. And when I was with the Padres, we did this every day. Sometimes it's easy, especially when you get older, to field a ball that's just a coach just fungos you a ball. Well, you're going to feel that almost 100% of the time. You'd be surprised when all of a sudden another coach is flipping a ball, and now it's almost like batting practice, and the balls hit harder, they're hit with more topspin, they're more game-like. Because game-like ground balls and fungo ground balls are a lot different. And although I think it's important to get those fungoed ground balls because you're able to work on stuff, it's also equally important to get the game-like ground balls because that's what ultimately is going to get you ready for the game. It's the same reason why we don't just take soft toss before the game. We get batting practice to where, yeah, it might not be exactly game-like, but it's getting a little bit closer. So I think it's important to hit every single step of the progression if you really want to develop infielders and not just stay at the rolling ground balls or at the extreme game-like ground balls, but to work through every single one. A few other things I'll say. This isn't really with the progression, but another few tips I throw in is to make sure that the guys work at different positions. Third baseman can work as second baseman or shortstops, and a lot of times young guys say, well, I'm a shortstop and I only want to play shortstop, but playing through all the levels, I've played every position. I've been on a lot of teams where I couldn't play shortstop because someone was better than me, or I couldn't play third because a third baseman was better, or I fit better as a second baseman. So one thing I noticed when I've gotten older is versatility is key. You're not always going to be the best shortstop on the team or the best center fielder. So you need to work on all the positions because if you can play 2 positions and another guy can only play 1, well, you'll have a better chance of sticking on the team because you're more versatile and you can do more for the team. And the last thing is, when you're doing these drills, you don't have to throw or have a guy throw to a base on every play, but it's important to have the guys throw and learn how to make every throw, whether it's a backhand extended play or maybe a forehand extended play or a get around the ball with your momentum carrying you a certain way. It's important to learn how to throw a ball from all these positions because they're going to make you throw from different arm angles, and you're going to need to practice that stuff. You don't want to go into a game just fielding ground balls and not getting your throws down, because throwing is just as important as fielding. You can field all day long, but if you field and then can't make the throw, well, it really didn't matter that you fielded it in the first place. So make sure you work on every part of your game.